Hello, welcome back to I Create For You. Today we're going to start a new book. It's called Haunted Schools. It's by Alan Zulo and True Ghost Stories it's called. And this is the same author that did the pet ghosts that we went into before. Alrighty. These are the long ones, so I apologize. Hopefully I can not make it too long and boring. The Stay Behind. In a clearing atop a wooded hill, the old one-room schoolhouse didn't do much stand as it did lean. The peeling wood siding had been painted much too long ago for anyone to remember. Many slats of the black shutters that covered 6 big windows had fallen off from rot. On the peak of the rust-stained tin roof, a weather-beaten bell tower was on the brink of collapse, yet it still housed a cast-iron bell whose ring faithfully had announced the beginning of the school day for generations of kids who grew up in nearby Chandler's Hollow. In 1953, after serving the community for more than 60 years, the school was closed. Although people in the area didn't have the money to preserve the building, they refused to tear it down. They left the school as it was, with desks, bookcases, and a slate blackboard still in their places, although just about everything else was cleaned out. The community wanted to keep the schoolhouse as a reminder of the days when kids of all ages were taught at one time, under one roof, by one teacher. It was in this aging, abandoned structure where Troy Anders and Cody Kincaid received a school lesson they will never forget. Troy, 12, a big city boy, was spending much of the summer with Cody, his 13-year-old country cousin. One day the two rode bikes on a remote gravel road to a spring-fed pond. On the way they passed the old schoolhouse. "It's been empty for years and years," explained Cody. "Can we go inside?" asked Troy. "It's locked. There's nothing much to see, just an old big dusty room. People say it's haunted." "It is?" Troy asked excitedly. "Yeah, I guess so. Mary Alms, who lives in the farm up the road, says she's heard voices, kids laughing and stuff, when she comes by here. Melvin McCarr was out with his hounds one night, and they pitched a howling fit when they came near it. Melvin says he walked up to the schoolhouse and saw lights flickering through the shutters. He checked the door, and it was locked. So then he peeked through one of the shutters and saw an older woman inside. She wore clothes from 50 years ago and was sitting at her desk reading to a couple of barefoot kids in their seats. The dogs were making a ruckus, so Melvin turned around to hush them up. He noticed the dog's hair was standing on end. Melvin got them quieted down, but when he looked back in the schoolhouse, it was all dark inside. Lots of people have heard or seen spooky things inside." "Wow," said Troy. Have you seen any ghosts?" "Nah, I don't believe in them," said Cody. "Come on, let's head over to the springs and cool off. It's hotter out here than the inside of a chicken coop at high noon." Within minutes, Cody and Troy were splashing in the crystal clear water. After an hour of fun, they toweled off when a loud clanging sound echoed off the surrounding hills. "What's that?" asked Troy. "Sounds like a school bell, but there isn't any school for miles around except for the old empty one. Let's go check it out." They hopped on their bikes and followed the ringing, which led them directly to the schoolhouse. When they reached the schoolyard, Cody looked up at the bell tower and said, "That bell is ringing its darn fool head off. Someone must have broken in." They walked up to the door, but the padlock was still clasped to the latch. After circling the building and finding that all the shutters were closed, the boys wondered how anyone got inside. Cody stepped back from the school to get a better view of the bell tower. "I don't know what to make of that," said Cody, pointing to the bell. "There's no rope, nothing to make it move, but it's ringing on its own." "You did say it was haunted." "Some people claim it is. Let's go inside." "But it's locked." No problem. Cody pulled out a pocket knife, and in minutes the lock snapped free. At that exact moment, the bell stopped ringing. A twinge of nervousness spread through Troy's stomach. For Cody, the bigger and tougher of the two boys, curiosity was building with each passing second. Let's see if we can solve the mystery of the bell. He pushed open the door, and the squeaky weathered He pushed open the squeaky weathered door, and they stepped into a large room where the stale, musty air caused the boys to sneeze. Thin beams of light from the afternoon sun squeezed through the shutters' broken slats, casting an eerie glow on the room's contents, which were covered in dust and laced with spider webs. Facing a teacher's simple oak desk were 4 rows, each with six wooden straight-back chairs. Each chair had an arm on the right side only that flared out into a foot-square pad which the students would write. Troy sat in one of the chairs. Man, these are uncomfortable. Can you imagine sitting in one all day? Ouch, my back would stay sore for 9 months a year. Yeah, and with the arms on the right side, I feel sorry for all the students who were lefties. They began looking at all the small letters, names, and dates that had been carved into the chairs over the year. KL plus AA, 8/24/32, Kilroy was here, and Boo. What about the bell? Troy asked. Cody looked up through the opening of the ceiling to the bell tower. I don't get it. Without a rope, there's no earthly reason for the bell to be ringing. Well, I guess we should go, said Troy, feeling a bit jittery about the bell. With every step they took, the wood floor creaked and groaned. About 30 feet from the door, a wood plank snapped under Troy's weight, and his left foot plunged through a hole in the floor. Ow! Hey, Cody, my foot is stuck. Help me out. Cody chuckled as he kneeled down and pushed the broken plank out of the way, freeing Troy. Before he stood up, Cody spotted an object inside the hole. He reached down and pulled out a thin book small enough to fit in a pocket. Troy, look at this. The worn book was so old that the lettering on the cardboard cover had nearly faded away. They could barely make out the title, Cobb's Juvenile Reader. About 100 delicate pages, yellowed from age, were bound to the spine by string and still readable. Be careful with this book, cautioned Troy. It could be valuable. The boys were so intent on examining their find that they failed to heed a new sound coming from the room. Tap, tap, tap. They looked up in surprise. Standing by the teacher's desk was a husky woman in her early 60s, hitting the top of her desk with a wooden pointer. Her brown hair was rolled up in a bun, and a pair of rimless eyeglasses attached to a chain around her neck were perched on the end of her nose. She wore a long flowered dress and a pair of plain brown shoes. You boys are tardy, she gently scolded them. You know what they say, lost time is never found again. Troy and Cody stared at her in open-mouthed amazement, not moving a muscle. The book slipped out of Cody's hand and fell to the floor. Find your seats now so we can get started, she said. Pardon me, ma'am, but just who are you? Asked Cody. Flashing a patient smile, the woman replied, Why, I'm Miss Sissy Simmons, of course. The way her tongue drew out the S's of her name reminded the boys of the hissing sound a snake makes. How did you get in here without us seeing you? Asked Troy. I've been here the whole time, she answered. You probably weren't paying attention, that's all. But when we came in, countered Cody, the room was empty. Oh, but you're wrong. I'm here. I've always been here. She flicked her wrist. Now, enough of this dilly-dallying. We have much to cover today. Cody cocked his head. Pardon? Miss Simmons put her hands on her hips and huffed. Dost thou love life? Then do not squander time, for that is the stuff life is made of. Words to heed from Poor Richard's Almanac. Find your seats now, please. We have lessons to do. Cody, Troy whispered out of the side of his mouth, Is she insane or what? Maybe we ought to split right now. She's a little touched in the head, Cody agreed, but let's play along and see what happens. The boys dutifully sat in chairs across from each other in the middle of the rows. Good, said Miss Simmons. Today we're going to talk about the states and their capitals, work on our division, practice penmanship, and read. Pointing to Troy, she added, but first, why don't you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? This is stupid, thought Troy. I can't believe I'm here pretending to be a student for this crazy lady. He glanced at Cody, who gave him a wink. Slowly, he and Cody stood up, and Troy started. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. When they finished and sat down, Miss Simmons said, "Doesn't it seem awfully dark in here? I think the shutters should be opened." The boys heard creaking noises and saw the room brighten from streams of sunlight. "The shutters!" yelled Troy. "They're opening by themselves." "How did you do that?" Cody asked the woman. Miss Simmons dismissed the question with another flick of her wrist and said, "Now let's get out Cobb's Juvenile Reader." The boys were so spooked by the unexplained way the shutters opened that they gazed blankly toward the front of the room. Finally, Troy warily raised his hand. Ma'am, Miss Simmons, we don't have our books." She shook her head. "You're new here, aren't you? Look on the floor behind you. You'll find a Cobb's Reader that you two can share. Now turn to page 45 and begin reading out loud." Cody picked up the book he had dropped, returned to his chair, and opened the reader. After scooting his chair over toward Cody, Troy turned the page, cleared his throat, and began reading from a page titled, "What is Pleasant?" "It is very pleasant to walk on the fields and to have the sun shining wherever we go. There are some people who would like to have nothing but summer, and who wish the days were always long and bright, and there were no cold wind or snow or winter nights. Without snow or rain, the seeds from which the flowers and the fruits of the summer spring up would perish and never do any good." "You were superb," praised Miss Simmons. Pointing to Cody, she said, "Now you read to the class." Trying to mask the growing uneasiness in his voice, Cody mumbled and read as fast as he could. "It is a sad thing to have learned to read and not know what a pretty book is better than a ball or a kite or any toy in the world. For a toy, you know, is soon spoiled or we grow tired of it, and then we forget it, and it's no use. But a book can tell us many kinds of things and contains some pretty stories. So when winter comes again, do not be sorry, but ask your papa or mama to find some pretty book in which you will read of things you will be pleased to know." When the boys looked up from the book, Miss Simmons was gone. "Where did she go?" asked Troy. "She must have sneaked out while we were reading this book. Man, that is one weird lady. Let's go before she comes back and tries to give us another lesson." Troy shoved the book in his pocket, and they started for the door. "Just where do you think you were going?" It was Miss Simmons, her arms folded, standing in front of the door. "Get back to your seats, please." Suddenly, the room filled with children's laughter, the kind directed at a classmate in trouble. "Where's the laughter coming from?" asked Troy, his eyes growing wider by the second. "From inside this room," Cody replied, his head turning in search of the source. "But there's no one except you and me and the crazy lady." "Boys, sit down," Miss Simmons ordered. "Don't let me have to use the switch on you." Totally bewildered by the laughter, the boys meekly returned to their seats. "Now then, who can name me the states that begin with A?" she asked. When the boys remained silent, Miss Simmons marched over to Troy and whacked her pointer on his desk. He winced and rattled off, "Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, and Alaska." "The first three are correct," said Mrs. Simmons, "but Alaska is not a state, it's a territory." "Ma'am," said Troy, "Alaska is our 49th state." "Land sakes," she said with a chuckle, "how many states do you think we have?" 50. "And the other is?" "Hawaii." "No, Hawaii is a territory too," she stated. "That's it," snapped Cody, rising out of his chair. "The fun is over, ma'am. This has gone on long enough. I don't know how you pulled off that trick with the shutters, and I don't know where you came from, but we're not reading from any more little books, and we're not playing your pretend games. We're leaving. And by the way, there really are 50 states. Look it up yourself." "What?" she said, her eyes glaring. "Do you think you can simply walk out of school whenever you want?" She gazed over their heads and then addressed the empty chairs. "Well, children, can we just leave whenever we want?" Out of nowhere came a chorus of no's and uh-uhs. "Where's that coming from?" said Troy, his throat tightening. "I don't see any kids. Do you, Cody?" "Time to get out of here," Cody shouted. Bang, 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 bang. The boys froze and watched in shock as the shutters slammed shut, by themselves, one after the other. By the time the boys recovered, the door had closed too. "Now you see what you have done?" hissed Miss Simmons, her eyes flashing angrily. "The whole class must be punished for your behavior." A collective groan filled the room, and a chorus of boos and nasty remarks rained on the befuddled boys. Nothing made sense to Troy and Cody. The strange woman, or the voices of the invisible children laughing at them. Miss Simmons strode down the middle of the row of desks, announced, "We will sit in a darkened silence and pray that the evil thoughts and deeds you have brought forth will be cleansed from your minds and mouths." With his teeth clenched, Cody whispered to his cousin, "I don't know about you, but I'm busting out of here." Troy nodded. "On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, go!" The boys shoved a few of the chairs aside as they scrambled for the door. Miss Simmons was guarding. "Just shove her out of the way, Cody." With their heads down, the boys charged the woman and then barreled right through her. They whipped open the door and sprinted outside into the sunshine. "What just happened?" asked Cody. "I know it's impossible, but we ran straight through her. I mean, it was like she wasn't even there, but she was there. We saw her." "I don't get it either. Let's go." They hopped on their bicycles and sped off toward home, pumping furiously until they were a mile away. They finally took a break near a weed-infested cemetery. "Who was that woman, Cody?" asked Troy. "I don't know, but I think we're in the presence of a certified nutcase. How she pulled off those stunts with the shutters and the disappearing act is beyond me." "Can you imagine having a teacher like Miss Sissy Simmons?" asked Troy, mocking her by exaggerating the S's of her name. They both laughed, but then Troy dropped his bike on the side of the road and stared past Cody. "Oh man, this is too creepy." "What is?" As if in a daze, Troy walked past Cody toward one of the gravestones. Cody look at this, he said, his voice rising with excitement. With a shaking hand, he pointed to the words etched in a gray granite tombstone. "Sissy Ann Simmons, beloved teacher, 1888 to 1949. Suddenly the afternoon quiet was shattered again by the pealing of the school bell. The freaked-out boys jumped onto their bikes and pedaled straight home. Within 24 hours, everyone around Chandler's Hollow had heard about the boys' encounter with the ghostly teacher. Curious adults and children held vigils in the old schoolhouse day and night, waiting for Miss Simmons to show up again or for something spooky to happen, but nothing did. About a month later, Carl Heller, a noted ghost hunter, heard about the case and arrived in Chandler's Hollow to investigate. He interviewed the boys and talked to other people in the area who previously claimed to have seen or heard strange things at the schoolhouse. Heller also spent several days inside the building. When he finished his investigation, he told Cody, Troy, and the townspeople his startling conclusion. "I believe you boys encountered what I call a stay-behind. Most ghosts are people who die tragically and are unable to recognize what happened to them," Mr. Heller explained. "They move about in the physical world, but usually not outside the immediate area of where they died. However, many ghost sightings involve people who had peaceful deaths. Upon further investigation, I found these cases all had 2 things in common. The people were strong-willed and greatly attached to their surroundings before their deaths. They are the stay-behinds. They are spirits They are spirits aware of their own death who won't let go of their former surroundings. They're simply unwilling to leave their earthly surroundings even though they no longer possess a physical body. Stay-behinds are still capable of causing bizarre phenomena, especially if they can draw on the energy of other people. In the case of Sissy Ann Simmons, she was a teacher in Chandler's Hollow for nearly 40 years, according to what I could find in the archives of the school board. Apparently, she never married and gave all of herself to that one-room school. She died in that building at age of 61. I believe she loved that school so much that her spirit wanted to stay. She became a stay-behind. Why did we see her and the others haven't? Asked Troy. Like a typical stay-behind, Sissy Simmons is quite satisfied to continue living her former life, staying out of the way of real people. She remains undiscovered until someone with special ability notices her by accident, or unless a real person comes in contact with something that was dear to her when she was alive. In this case, she appeared after Cody found the book. In other cases, for unknown reasons, the stay-behind wants people to know he or she is still around. Obviously, Sissy Simmons wanted to teach, and you two happened to be her students for the day. I've had some unusual teachers, said Troy, but no one like Sissy Simmons. Well, that was a pretty good story. I have a picture of a one-room schoolhouse in case you don't really know what it looked like or have never saw one. We have several here in Berks County that you can pass pretty frequently. I can tell you of 3 that I frequently pass, and one is pretty abandoned, and it has a swing set out front. Has a swing set out in front of it and everything, but it's abandoned, and it's sort of like exactly like this one in the picture, and it's in really bad shape. And then there's one that was converted into a house, and I'll tell you a quick thing about my mom. My mom and my aunt and uncles, they used to have to walk in Kempton area to their one-room schoolhouse where they all went to school together. So with this story, I'm going to try to draw Miss Sissy Simmons, just her head. I'm not good with profile pics, but I'm gonna give it a try and see if I can do it. Now, I know she was supposedly in her 60s. This lady isn't really old looking that I'm gonna draw, but I'm gonna try. Look at my lovely pencil. Get the lead out, right? Okay, great. I need a new sharpener. That's what I need. So I'm gonna go with possibly just doing her nose first. Like I said, I am not good with portraits unless it's an animal. An animal I can do, but no, I'm not too good with doing faces. But that's why I like doing this kind of stuff. It takes me out of my comfort zone, and I can try to get past that whole not being able to do faces. And right now she's looking like she's a piggy, being this is her nose. I'm gonna do the best I can. You know what? I'm gonna start over. This is like looking horrible. There's like no easy way of starting this one. How about if I do the jawline? That might help me. I don't usually start with this. I usually start with the head, the hair, and then I guess I should do it darker so you can see what the heck I'm doing. And I'm gonna do her ears. There's one. There's the other one. Oh, so far so good on that. Oh, she's gonna wear earrings. What the heck? I'll make her wear earrings. What if they had earrings back in the... Well, yeah, she was in the 1900s too. So, we'll just give her some pretty earrings. And her hair. I'm gonna guess she had it pulled back. So we're gonna try to do her hair there. And I'm gonna actually do the rest of her head here. Yeah, that had to be an interesting thing there. I know my aunts and my mom and them. My mom had a story about not necessarily the one room schoolhouse, but every morning when they would go to the schoolhouse, they'd pass a farm, and on this farm there was a bull. E-I-E-I-O. Got a little off there. Anyway, on this farm there was a big bull, and my mom said when they first moved there that people would tell them, just, we got to be careful, don't go up to the fence, don't try to touch it or call it over or anything, just walk on by. But nobody had warned them that if they were a certain color, it would make the bull angry. And of course you all know what that color is. It's red. And my mom said when her brother wore red one day, that bull was ticked off. It came racing and charging the fence and everything. So yeah, they were a little bit shocked at that, but they learned their lesson and didn't wear visible red. So I don't know if he was wearing a sweater or what he was wearing, or what he could have, t-shirt maybe in the summertime. I don't know what it was, but he didn't wear it anymore. He didn't wear anything like that again. Can you imagine though? You're walking along talking with your siblings, and all of a sudden you hear this raging bull coming at you, and you're like, what the heck? We didn't even pay attention, And yeah. So that's what happens back in the day. Can you imagine being in school and having, kids in your classroom? I mean, it's probably cool to be able to study with your siblings, but you being in kindergarten age, and they're being in out of school age, and you're learning the same thing that they're learning. That baffles me. How they even came about of, teaching the kids like that all together. That makes no sense to me how they did it. I don't understand it. I never really asked either. When you're young and your parents are telling you these stories, and you're like, oh, here we go with walking a mile and in 3 foot of snow stuff. But if you had parents or grandparents that lived in that day, ask them questions. It's amazing what you can find out, and you learn better than what you've learned in books and stuff. Man, their real experiences are amazing. And yeah, I wish I would have been a little more curious when my mom and my aunts and stuff were still alive. That would have been awesome, even for to write it down and have it for your grandkids. Look, your great grandmother, or your kids, your great grandmother used to to go to a one-room schoolhouse and be able to take them on a road trip and show them what a one-room schoolhouse is. My daughter, for some reason, well, when she was little, she wanted to be a teacher herself, and she always wanted to live in a one-room schoolhouse. She used to say, why can't we live in a schoolhouse? It'd be like, what? And then I realized that they actually had one not far from where we lived. And this nose and mouth are going to be the end of me here. But yeah, so when we went on a road trip, she would say, there's a one-room school. She'd get so excited when she'd see them. And she'd say, I wish we could go in and look at one and stuff like that. I mean, and now I'm thinking, that would have been cool to be able to go inside and see what one looked like. See what it all looked like inside and how they sat. Well, it kind of explained it in that book, but you know, the one that we pass that's like on our back roads here in Hamburg, it actually has, it looked like it has an attic, but it wasn't built onto it. Oh, these lips are ridiculous. They weren't even really built onto them, but I mean the attic type part, their second floor, it didn't look like it was in a bad shape either. But I did notice that the one out here that's abandoned, that it's as long as it's a dilapidated looking place, but it still has the structure, the like the little playground area, and it's awesome. It's like a piece of history you drive by. And you know, like when we drive by it, I often think about what it must have been like to be in that school, and how many kids it held and things like that, because that was a very rural area where this school was. It still is. I mean, there's still a lot of how can I say it? A lot of miles between houses, in other words. It's mostly all farmland. So I have that. Let me see. I'm going to try to zoom out without losing you. There we go. And there's Miss Sissy Simmons with her funny nose and lips. Sorry, Miss Simmons. And once again, one-room schoolhouse. Hope you enjoyed this story. I'm sorry that these stories are so long, but they are interesting. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you haven't. We got other stories on a Monday and a Friday. We do the stories, and on Wednesday we do whatever Wednesday. And I also do shorts. So check them all out. See if you'd like to stay and be a part of the family, which I hope you do. And it doesn't really matter if you like or subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. It matters to me because then you're in my community, and I really want you to be here and enjoy the little things that I'm doing to break up the monotony of day-to-day life. And please check out my shorts because they're all positivity, motivation, encouragement, inspirational shorts, and great way to start your day. Thank you so much for stopping by. Stay warm, stay healthy, stay you, and stay with my channel. Bye-bye for now.